So Jeff, you've been like me in, this crypto space for coming up on 6 months, a year. I know, we haven't been in it really that long. We haven't been in DeFi that long, but we've both found our way into, the world of Dan Nicholson and Nick Peterson and the Wolf Den and all the stuff that they're doing, which obviously we're carrying over into the Whale Club to bring to the real estate space.
Right.
And I know you're signed up to do, the CCA with Nick and Dan here coming up, I think in November, right?
Correct. Yeah. Cohort 4.
Great. So we talk a lot about the investor operating system. I know you have adopted a lot of these principles and frameworks as well. What's been one of the most impactful concepts or principles that you've learned from, through this process?
Yeah. I think the one for me that's probably been the most impactful is the whole principle of closer versus more.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first heard that, I sat back, pondered that for a bit, and I thought, okay, where am I doing that? Where am I chasing more versus getting closer to what I actually want? And to me, that was an extremely eye-opening exercise because my really thinking about that, I realized I was doing that pretty much everywhere. In all facets of life, everything from, health stuff to business stuff, how I invest. And so knowing that differentiation and listening to Nick and Dan talk through that, and then us and our conversations in the Whale Club talk through it, I've started really stepping back. And every time I catch, that typical mode of chasing more, I stop and go, is this actually getting me closer to what I want or not? And then reframing that and making sure that all of my actions are actually aligned to closer instead of being aligned to more.
Mm-hmm. Maybe you could share an anecdote, because we say this and it's like, yeah. Let me get closer to the things that I want. But, it was one of those things that when you really start looking under the hood, like you said, you see this all over the place where we might be violating these principles. Maybe you could share where did you observe that in your life, business? Where did you see it?
Yeah, so I'll just keep it relative to our sphere here, where I think where I really noticed that I did the more versus closer immediately, and then I really started reflecting to it. There was just around my investment philosophy around some of the crypto stuff I've done. It was more of an all in. Let's just go as hard as we can and get as much upside as we can, and what that leads to ultimately is wreckage, unless you just happen to get really lucky on timing sometimes. But ultimately, that's kind of doesn't fit with my principles of being a long-term value investor, right? So for me, that was one where I had to check myself and realize that another one is the whole being smooth and slow. That's actually the faster path as opposed to just all in like that. So I think that's where I noticed it the first time. And then that's where I really took account of that. So that's one example. And then, I'll give you one other, is just in one area of business. And this is more on the real estate investing side. I've had some deals and some opportunities where I've gone way deeper in because I thought I could make a lot more money a lot faster than just taking a slow and steady, much more calculated approach. And, when you look at that, you think about hustling and grinding and all those kind of things, but then sometimes it's just not the smartest way, because if my goal is, and I'll use this one for me, spending more time with my family, but that particular pursuit is taking that time away from my family, even if the monetary value happens to be high, or even if it's not aligned with the closure aspect of that. It's ultimately chasing more, which leads to not getting what you ultimately want there, which is getting closer to what I want would be that case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of these things where it can creep up on you. You don't recognize it as much when you're doing it, like you're in the moment, and then you take a step back and you're like, where am I? How did I even end up here? That's completely different from the things that I say that I want. We do this in crypto because crypto is so easy. You can look on a decentralized exchange and you can be like, well, but this one has a higher percentage, right? Why wouldn't I take
lessons on that over the years too?
Right. Why wouldn't I buy this one? It has a higher percentage. It's like, well, what do we know about chasing more? It has more risk as well. And, you know, this concept of chasing more, it really stems from the solvable problem that we learned from Nick and Dan, and which really is a math equation for our goals, right? And we use it because we need to understand whether we need to add risk or take risk out of the equation.
Right.
You know, we use this example all the time. Like, hey, if you only needed 20% return to get all the things that you needed in life, and the, 15 years you're going to work, whatever, insert your timeline, then why are you chasing after guard BUSD at 70%? It's like, we've got opportunities for you to earn 20%. But of course, we as humans are programmed to say, yeah, but this one's more. I could get more here.
And get there faster, right?
Get there faster.
But the thing is, we don't account for, I think, and especially in my case, accounting for all the risk factors that may be involved. And then the timeline was a big one for me because, the way I work, the way I've operated historically is, it's just all out, right? And this is another one too. It's more like all or nothing thinking. And to me, that really doesn't end up as a good outcome. It's much more sustainable to do the closer instead of just always chasing more, because it's kind of an end sum game, right? When you're always chasing more, how do you know if you ever got there?
Yeah, right.
You could look back and have 10, 15 years of time pass and have all this accumulation and be like, yeah, but did I really actually achieve what I was after? What was I after? So if you don't answer that question up front, it kind of reminds me where I think I first heard that years ago. I read a book by Tim Ferriss, and he said, why do it all in the first place? But that's actually defining what you want. And I think a lot of people don't do that because they're afraid that, to do that, because if you define what you actually want, you also define what you don't want, this whole success failure paradigm. And then it's got real application after that.
Mm-hmm. So, we talk about it starts with clarity. If someone is struggling with that, what would you say to them, right? They're constantly chasing more. What would you tell to that person?
Yeah. So I've actually, part of it is stop and actually take time to define what it is you want, in your endeavor, whether that's a whole life philosophy, a particular business practice, whatever it is, but take time to actually stop and spend time thinking about it and defining it. And I catch myself sometimes, doing this, like when I read a book, I'll consume it. Yep, it's in there. On to the next book. Did I actually apply anything out of it? What was the point of reading it if I didn't? And it's that whole stop, take account, that sort of thing. So I think really defining what you want and counting the cost around that is the core of that principle to me of, closer to what I want versus just chasing more in perpetuity.
Well, I'm going to add one more to you because I get this question all the time. It's like, yeah, but Paul, what I want changes. Like what I want now is different than what I wanted 6 months ago, which is different than what I'm going to want in a year. And so how do you account for that?
Yeah. So that, one of the just books I read recently that got recommended just in all the discussions that we've had is Be Your Future Self Now. Right. And when you think about that, you're always going to be a different person in the future, but at least as far as you can see with what you want, that's at some point in the future. Start doing all the actions that align with that now so that you get closer to that, what you want. Now, when you get to that point, you may decide, hey, there's more to this aspect or something else. But I think you do have to break that down into some, timeline that makes sense for having an actual time horizon that makes sense for what you want or what you want to accomplish. And everybody's what they want is different, therefore their timeline is different. But I think a lot of times we don't give ourselves enough time to achieve what that is, because we're just all in a hurry. We want it now, as opposed to what makes actual sense to for the right time horizon.
Yep. Well said. Well, as you know, we talk a lot about this in the Whale Club. This is really the focus of what we talk about is how do we get closer to the things that we want without chasing more. So if this is of interest of you guys, check us out on blockchainwhales.com, and we're going to be putting out more content like this every week. So thanks, Jeff.
Absolutely.